Hello, NG Houston. How are you doing? I'm Bonnie, and we're back with another great show. We haven't seen y'all in a while. Tonight we have, I'm going to introduce you and panelists in just a second. But so tonight we have Fanis Prodromou?
Prodromou, yeah, exactly.
Prodromou. Fanis Prodromou.
Hello, NG
Hello. And this was a surprise because I invited Aristides Pampakos, and I said your name right this time.
You always say my name right. You always say it right. Yeah.
Because it's fun, and you're fun, and I didn't know. I assumed that you two knew each other because you're both from Greece. So I just assume everybody from Greece knows each other. And I just invited you to give him a hard time because you guys know each other, so you can heckle him while he's talking. Okay, so Fanis, well, first of all, before we jump into the presentation, can you guys just tell us a little bit about yourselves and your group, and for anyone who hasn't, because we're talking to NG Houston. I think everything's kind of global right now; it's online, but you guys also have a meetup, so we're like meetup colleagues. Will you tell us about your meetup?
Ari, would you like to share something about this?
Yeah, I'm Aristides Pampakos. You can call me Aris if you want, because it's shorter, and it's very difficult for non-Greek people to pronounce it. I am a co-organizer of the Angular Athens meetup. I work as a front-end web developer at a company called Plexer, where I specialize in the Angular framework. I am the author of the book Learning Angular 3rd edition, and recently I joined the Google Developers Experts program for the Angular framework. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks very much, Bonnie, for the invitation.
Absolutely. And I think that the GDE is very well deserved. So welcome to the GDE family. And we have Jeffrey Bosch in the chat. Hello, Jeffrey Bosch. Okay, so you guys have this group with Katerina, and it's fun. And you guys have a YouTube channel as well. So you guys have some really. I've seen your speaker lineup lately, and you have some really good. Do you have anybody exciting coming up soon?
Yes, it's cooking. It's not yet officially, so we cannot announce it yet. But always we try to pick some very good topics and present them. But we cannot officially announce anything yet.
It's a secret.
Yeah.
Okay. Aris, Fanis, I want you to share your screen and tell us about this lazy loading for performance benefits. In the meantime, Aris, will you put a link to your book in the chat, or put it in the private chat, and I'll put it in the YouTube chat so that they can. And also,
sure.
Both of you have books. Let's hear. Okay, Fanis, I'm going to share your screen.
Okay.
And I'm going to mute because I have airplanes outside, and you can jump right
in the air. Okay, so let me start. Thanks. First of all, thanks for having me. My name is Fanis Prodromou, as Bonnie said, or else Fanis. I'm an Angular Tech Director at the company Code Hub. It's actually a private institute, and we teach many different technologies. I'm responsible for the Angular, and I work there for about 3 years, and I'm very happy for this. And at the same time, I'm front-end lead at the company Architects. I'm also authoring the book Mastering Angular Reactive Forms. I expected to have a deadline, and expected to have it ready at the end of January. And I think then the publisher needed at about 2 months for the technical review and all the other needed stuff before publishing in the market. And also co-organizer of Angular Athens Meetup. On the bottom right corner, you can see also my contact details. If you want to follow me in Twitter, you can find me like Prodromou. My blog is blog.profanis.me. I have some cool articles there. At least they're cool for me. But you can go there and check them out. And in LinkedIn, you can connect with me again in Prodromou. So let's start. So for today, the talk is about how to lazy load components. And actually, I will split this talk in 3 different parts. The first one is how to load a component using a selector. It could be tedious, and for someone might be, come on, are you serious? How using a selector to load a component? But this at least will build a basis and to follow the next topics. And the next one is how to dynamically create a component by using a factory resolver. And last but not least, the most important thing that for this topic is how to lazy load a component. So in order to load a component, I have prepared a very superficial template. This is it. So it's just a wrapper with a dust area. And inside the dust area, we will try to load the component or the components. And this is how the HTML looks like. It's not something special. We just have a div here, a wrapper div, a paragraph tab, another div, a child container with some margins, top and margin bottom, and so on and so forth. And inside here, we want just to render our component. So imagine the following. If we have a selector with this name, this is the selector tag, up lazy content. If we load this here, what do we expect to see? We expect to see this, I miss here, is. This is the content of the lazy load component, and we expect to see it under color red. So this is what we expect to see, and this is how it looks like. It should look like. So let's have a look on the code. So as said previously, we have, I will open a bit the source. So what we can see here that we have the lazy content and the lazy one. So we have two different components, and we will try to load both of them in the wrapper. So the wrapper, this is it. Now, the only thing that it displays is the lazy content, and the lazy content is this one, okay? So what we have here is, this is the content of the lazy load component under color red. And if we see the other one, the other component, the lazy one, it's exactly the same with different selector, but has also the color green. Okay, so let's close this one. And if we see in the browser, it looks like this. This is the content of the lazy load component. Now, what about if we want to have a condition? And a condition meaning that if I want to display the lazy one or lazy without the number, let's say. So to do this, most probably we would need to have an input here, and I will call it like component type. And this is going to be either lazy or lazy one. Lazy one. Come on. And let me fix this as well. Component type. Okay, so these are the two types that I can have. Now let's go on the template. And what I can do is have a condition. If the component type equals to, let's say, lazy, then display this one. Otherwise, if the component type is lazy one, I'm going to have a different selector. And this one is, so let's have a look, what is the name of the selector? It's up lazy one content. So I will copy this and go to the other file and just paste it here. And of course, what we have to do is to go on the app component HTML and provide here the needed information, inject the information here. So I want to load the component type with name lazy. If we go on the browser, we can see that we have the red one. If we go again on the code and we inject here lazy one, we can see here that we have the green one. So this is the very, very simple case in which we can load different components conditionally. But let's see how things work before I actually this implementation has a problem, but before I dive deeper into the problem, let's see how things work. Imagine the following. So for the sake of this presentation, let's assume that Angular has a compiled component stack. So this one on the right. And I will explain why we need this compiled component stack. So Angular, in general, everything is under a class. So everything is a class. So we have here export class, one component. But how does Angular know that this one component is actually a component? If we think simply, we know that we type TypeScript, this code is transpiled into JavaScript, but that Angular, how does it know that this particular one is a component? Of course, because we have the decorator. And Angular has also some strict semantics to know that this class, once is transpiled, compiled, will have some semantics to know that this is a component. And those are, we can see here that we have one component, and we have this weird character here with a FAC from factory, and here is the factory as well. And also we can see also here the weird character with CMP from component. So if we didn't have a component, and instead of component we had the directive, for example, this would be dir. Or for a module, this would be a MOD from the module. So every time Angular compiles the components, and this is what we have. And it's very important, at least for this topic, to focus on this one, on the type. So we have a type, and this is the name of the class, one component, and we can see it also here. Okay, so if we have other components, so for example, two components, we're going to have it compiled as well. We have the third component, and again, we're going to have it compiled in the compiled component stack. So let's assume, and of course, I don't imply that this is the Angular's architecture, but this is just for the presentation, and it will help us. So previously, what we saw was the lazy one content component, and if we see this component, the compiled component in the developer tools, in the sources, what we can see is something like in this slide. So what do we have here? We have a factory, and the factor is lazy one content component factory, and also we have the component and the type on the right side. So the type is lazy one content component. Excellent. But what about all of these? Is it enough as an information? So I prepared this infographic to guide you through the way that how we're going to present something, how we're going to present the component in the template. So imagine that.
I love this infographic.
Thank you very much, Ronnie.
You're welcome. I love your visuals. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just had to tell
Thank
you
you
I
very
love
much. I
these.
really appreciate. So think the following, that we have this very simple template. We have just a div, and then we have a component selector. So every framework, every library that needs to compile things, of course, it needs to have a token generator, and of course, we have the token generator in Angular as well. Of course, it's more complex than just a simple box there, but it's a token generator. And from the token generator, we can generate some nodes. And for this particular template, we have two different nodes. The first one is the component selector, and the second one is the div. The next step is to decide what to do. So let's focus on the component selector. We have the component selector, and Angular will try to fetch, will try to get the component selector from the compiled component stack, and we'll get something like this. So if you see here, we have the selector. So since we have the selector and we also have the template, and of course, I don't display all the information here because we don't have enough space, voila, we have it in our view. Excellent. I mentioned previously that the implementation that I showed that we had two different ngIf conditions, it has a problem. And the problem is, how about, think this, how about if we want to load many components? Imagine that we have 10 different components. We have 10 different conditions. If it's 1, if it's 2, if it's 3, if it's 4, and so on and so forth. And of course, it's an open-close principle violation, which says that the code should be open for extension, but closed for modification. So it's a violation, and in this talk, we will try to solve this problem. And the solution to this one is to lazy load the components. The recipe is that we need to have a view container ref, or else just to have a container where we can dynamically attach views on another component. So this is, in a nutshell, the recipe. And now let's jump on the second part, how to dynamically load a component using a factory resolver. The template will be exactly the same, just this amazing template that I prepared, render your component in the dust area, we'll have a dust area. And the difference here is we have an ng container with a template reference variable. Here we could have even a div or anything. I decided to have just an ng container. But the important thing here is that we need to have the template reference variable, lazy content. And now let's see again how things work in order to do this. And after this, we will jump into the code. So previously we discussed about a compiled component stack. So this is it. I couldn't find a better graphic for this one, but let's assume that this is a compiled component stack. In order to dynamically, so this is what we're trying to do now. We will try to dynamically create a component. How to do this? We have a compiled component stack, and we have to resolve by type. So remember previously that we said about the type, how important it was. And this is the type. You see, we have type 1 component, and this is the class name. So we tell Angular, I want to resolve by type, which type, this class name from the compiled component stack. Okay, I have it, and since I have it, then I can create a component. And voila, we have it in our view. And if we see the code, it's this one. The first one is that we have to query the template reference variable that we created previously. The name was lazy content. Very important, we need to have this option, read view container ref. And having this container, then the next thing is to resolve the component by type. Let me go back a bit. Here we have to resolve and then to create, two different steps. So here we have to resolve, and the actual method is resolve component factory, but in a nutshell, we have to resolve. We have to provide here the class name. This is the class name, the lazy content component. And the next one is to create a component. So this is it. This is the second method. What are you going to create? The component factory. And what is this? The thing that we just get previously. And where am I going to present it? Where am I going to attach this? In the lazy content container, which is the container that we get previously. And let's have a look. So I will, let me just discard everything from here. And I will just change some branches. And this is it. Dynamically create components. So let me close everything. And now I will start explaining what we have here. Sort of the same. We have the lazy content, no changes there. We have the lazy one content, no changes there. And we have the lazy wrapper. Before I dive deeper into the lazy wrapper, it's very important to open the app module. So of course we have to declare the components. So we have to declare the lazy content component. We have to declare lazy one content component. But very important, we have also to declare those components on the entry components. This is a section on the module, and in a nutshell, what we say to Angular is that, you know what, those two components, I want them to be dynamically created during the runtime. Okay, so we have to have them there. And now let's see a little bit the lazy wrapper. So what we have here, the lazy wrapper, is the following. If the component type is lazy, resolve the component. Which one? The lazy content component. And what is this? Let me open this as well. I have to keep this. So lazy content component. Okay. So if the component type is lazy, resolve this one. Otherwise, resolve the other one, the lazy one content component. Again, I have to ask the component by type, which is the class name. Having the component factory, then I can just create the component. Let's have a look. So I have two different buttons, load the first and load the second. If I click load the first, we can see the first component on red. And if I click load the second, we can see the second one, which is on green. So this is how we dynamically create the components. And as said previously, it's sometimes things look harder, but it's not that hard. We have two different things, resolve and create. So let's continue. But you know what? I lied a bit. So what I said previously is that I'm going to show you how to lazy load the component, but this was a nigger load. We didn't lazy load the component. So the recipe to lazy load the component is the two previous ingredients, but now also we need to have ES6 import. We have to tell Angular dynamically to load the component, fetch the component. So this is the third topic of this talk, how to lazy load a component. And the template, again, is going to be this awesome one. And we don't have any difference at all on the HTML. Again, we have the ng container with just a template reference variable. And this is the name lazy content. Now, let's see again how things work. Sort of the same, but we have one very important difference. And this is what Webpack offers, and of course, Angular utilizes in a very smart way, that we have to create chunks. And what are the chunks? So whenever we compile Angular, we have, let's say, one big chunk. It's more than this, but let's say that we have all the compiled code in one file. So Angular, and Webpack, whenever sees that we're going to have lazy load components, generates two separate chunks. So if we're going to lazy load two different components, we're going to have one chunk for the first one, another chunk for the second one, and of course, the original chunk for the compiled component of Angular application. So since we have this, the code splitting functionality, then we have to tell Angular, you know what, I know that all of those, I have the chunks, and the chunks are compiled. I want to import them. And by import means download the component. And this is very important in terms of performance, because we don't have to load everything up front. We just code splitting. So we tell Angular, download this for me, and we get this compiled component. Again, I couldn't find a better graphic for this one, but let's assume that this is a compiled component. And the flow then goes similar like how to dynamically create a component. Since we have it, then we have just to resolve by type. This is what we're going to get, create the component, and voila, we have it. We have it in the screen. And the idea of the compiled component stack, it's sort of the same, but this time we have one difference, and these are the chunks. Whenever we have a component, we don't have it in our browser unless we ask for it. So I'm not going to have in the browser the second component unless I ask for it, and the same goes for the third component. So when we lazy load the components, the flow goes like this. We define the components. The components are compiled in different chunks. And I said previously, we do not have them in the browser unless we request them. And now let's see how the code looks like. The very important line is line number 9. So what we have here is import, and we have to define the path, exactly the path where the component lives in order to download it. So import lazy content component. I have here a wait, and of course I have here a sync as well. And since I have the lazy content component, this is what I get from during import, I can just resolve the component. Do you remember how can we resolve a component? By defining the type. So when we import the component, what we get is an object and has one property there, and this property is the class name. So we have to use the class name. So lazy content component with a capitalized, and this is the class name that we have to resolve. And of course, create component. Let's have a look. So let me close this one. I have to change branches, and I will go lazy load.
Can I jump in with a comment while you're doing this? Because first of all, I love your visuals, I just have to say. And I really love the component factory resolver. The first time that I used this, I felt like it made sense to me, but I really got stuck because I forgot. I knew because I saw it in the tutorial, but I forgot about the entry components. So maybe you could show them that one more time, because that was the part that messed me up, because I had it, but I just forgot that one piece, and so I had to troubleshoot that for a while. But once I got that, then everything worked fine. So I just forgot that one little piece.
So we need indeed to have the entry components. Without them, no magic. Yeah.
It will not work
for a long time. Why it doesn't work? So yeah, you are right. You are absolutely right. We need to have the entry components. Very good point. So shall I continue? I guess.
Yeah, unless Aris has any questions.
Okay, so
No, I don't have.
okay.
Yeah.
I will
keep
change
going.
branch. I will go on the lazy load component with a condition. And since we are here, so the important thing is that we do not have the declarations. So if you remember previously, what we want to do is to lazy load the component, to display two different components, the lazy content and the lazy one content, but we do not have the declarations here, nor the entry components. So we do not have them there. So let's see, this is a benefit that we have from IAV9. This is a great improvement. And let's go now on the wrapper. I'm not going to explain what the lazy content and lazy one content is all about because we didn't change anything. The only difference is here. So what we have here is the following. If the component type is lazy, I want to download this component. And this one returns an object and has one property, and this property is the class name. So I want this class. And what do you want to do with this class? To resolve it. I want to resolve it, keep it in a variable so that I can later on create the component. The important thing here is that Angular does the following. During compilation, whenever it sees that we have a path in the import, it's like, oh, dude, I know what you're going to do here. You're going to download the component. So you know what? I'm going to compile this component for you. So we're going to have it compiled. This is important, and I will show you. I will display later on why it's very important to have it there. So let me again start this one to see how it works. Please make it work. Sometimes during the presentation, things go crazy, but let's hope we will be lucky.
Yeah, it's always harder on YouTube. Hey, I never doubted you.
Okay, so I will reload this one. Okay, this time I will have the network open. So what we expect to do is to load the first component and see the downloaded component here. And here it is. We have the content, but also what we have is this one. And if I open this, what we will see is the compiled component, what we saw previously. So we have here the class, we have the factory, we have the component, somewhere we have also the type, and this is a very important thing. And also, let's now load the second one. And this is it, lazy one load component. And this is the compiled component that we have downloaded. And when I said previously about chunks, these are the chunks, lazy one content and lazy content, two different chunks. If I now click again the button load the first and load the second, we no longer have to download them because they're already there. And we can see also the chunks here. So this is the first chunk, and here is the second chunk. So Angular already compiled those components for us. Don't you see here, though, a pattern? So what we can see here is the lazy and lazy one, and again lazy and lazy one, and here the same, lazy one and lazy. So it seems that we have a pattern. So let's continue. And on the very first implementation with the selectors, we said that we had a problem, and the problem was the open close principle. And you know what? We still have the same problem. We have a violation to open close principle because, again, if we want to have 10 different components, we have to go on the wrapper and have 10 times different conditions. And the solution to this problem is to lazy load a component, but this time using a pattern. And this is a very good one. And I will change the branch again. I will go to lazy load components with a condition, with a pattern, sorry. I will kill this and I will start in a while. So let's see, what do we have? The code is sort of the same. What we have here is an import. So we import, but this time the path is generated during the runtime. And here we provide the component type, we provide the content, and in a nutshell, we generate the path that we want to have. Which path? So if the component type is lazy, so we're going to have lazy content, which is this one. And lazy content component, which is this one. So we just generate the component. But we have a problem here. Angular now, during compilation, will go here and it's like, you're going to dynamically create a component and you're going to lazy load the component. So I will compile it for you. But where is the path? Angular doesn't know where this path is all about, where this path exists, because it's generated during the runtime. But we have to have the components ready during the compilation. And we have two solutions here. The first one is to go on the app module and have the declaration, lazy and lazy one. And of course, like Bonnie said previously, don't forget to have the entry components. But you know what? This is going to be a lazy load, will be an eager load. But what we need to do here is to have them lazy. And the second one is, let me try to compile this, to start this. And let's see together the warnings. I will prepare this, give it some time. So here we will see some components, some warnings. I will skip the warnings and I will go directly here. I will just reload, clear everything, and load the first. It tried to download something. The code knows that we want to download something, but if we click this one, we will see just an error. Throw new error, module failed, module build failed. So what we know is that Angular wants to have the components compiled. So since this cannot happen automatically here, we can help Angular and provide this in the tsconfig path, in tsconfig. So in the include, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have copy relative path, and I will tell Angular, you know what? I will help you this time, and I will provide the paths myself. And again, copy relative path, and the same goes here. And let's give it a try. So npm run start. So what we expect here is not to have the warnings anymore. If we do not have the warnings, it means that everything will work nice. And we will see also how to lazy load the components. Nice. So we have now different, we have the chunks, but this time the chunks are different. And this is expected because Angular doesn't know the exact name of the path because it's generated. And let's have a look. I will reload this one. I have it loaded. And let's go on the network. Load the first. Here it is. And if we click, we can see that we have the compiled component and load the second. Load the first and load the second. This is excellent, but still we have a problem with open-close principle. And you might go wondering, where do we have this problem? Here. So if we're going to lazy load 10 different components, we have to go on the include and provide the components one after the other, unless we use some wild characters here and have it like this. I think this will be okay. So I will delete this one, I will close it, and I will try to rerun. So if this works, means that we can have lazy load components using a pattern, and of course with a performance benefit. So let's give it a try. So,
I really like this.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Very slick.
It's very cool, yeah. And now if we click load this first, load the second, we can have it. And we can even, so this is the good thing. I no longer need this, so I will kill this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another component. So I will just copy this one, lazy1, and I will name it lazy2. And let's see if this will work. And this also will be lazy2. And the class name, of course, will be lazy2. So I don't need to have the implements, nor this one. Actually, this code is just leftover, so I don't need this. And let's have here in the template just ng Houston. So we have, and this is a second selector. So we have lazy2 content component. So now let's give it a try. Let's go on the app component and create another button. Load ng Houston. without this. And of course, I need some spacing, so just have a margin here. And now the type is 2. So load ng Houston and let's give it a try. Now have, close this, load the first, load the second, and load ng Houston. And we have it without even touching the code. So this is a great improvement. We have a benefit of the performance, and at the same time, we managed to fulfill the open-close principle. And that was it. Thank you very much. And do you have any questions? Please do let me know.
That was very cool. Let me see. I'm going to take off the screen share. That was really nice. I'm very impressed. I want to be friends with you. I like that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I don't know. So we have some people watching in the chat, and if you guys have any questions, then now's your chance. I don't know if there will be any questions because that was very clear. I love the visuals. I don't know if you know Samantha, but my daughter is very much into visuals, and so we use a lot of visuals in our teaching, and so do you. And it's super helpful because it's really not so confusing. I think that the concept of the component factory resolver, because sometimes, at least when I was first starting out, I think it was a little abstract to figure out what was going on. But the dashed lines really makes it very clear. It's just little stuff like that. Like I can picture exactly where it's going to go, and it was very nice. Very nice.
Thank you very much. And actually, it helps me as well. If I want to understand something, it helps me to just have a pen and paper, draw it. This is how it works. Nice. Otherwise, it's harder for me.
I agree. All right, Aris.
I have some questions though. Yeah, I have some questions because I didn't want to interrupt Fanis during the talk. I have collected 2 or 3 questions. If it is okay.
Do you want to put the screen share back up?
Yeah. So
no, it's okay if you want.
Okay.
Well, just let me know if you want. Well, let's hear the questions first, and then we'll decide.
Yeah. Okay. My first question is. I saw that you make an if-else statement to differentiate about the component time. How is this different from an ng switch statement or an ng-if statement inside the template? For example, yeah.
There is not much difference.
Is this clear? Yeah.
Yeah. It's you can even have it with ng-if, ng-switch, if-else, because now I didn't use if-else. So you can use it wherever you want, however you want to load it. The reason you might have another question, so why did you pick ng-if? I think sometimes when you present something and you're going to explain something, it's better to explain it with the easiest semantics. So ng-switch sometimes become a little bit more complicated in terms of understanding. So that's why I decided to have like ng-if. But the outcome will be exactly the same.
So if I could put the ng-if inside the template and say ng-if that load this component, but add the tag. Actually, don't lazy load the component, but add the selector inside the template with ng-if.
Yeah,
is this clear?
Yeah, this is crystal clear. It could work. But we won't have a performance benefit, and we will have to revisit the code many times. So what I wanted to depict here is how to have a performance benefit from code splitting feature from Webpack, and as I said previously, that Angular utilizes in a very nice way, and also respect the open-close principle. I'm really fan of principles and try to respect them as much as I can.
I also think that the ng switch, I actually think the ng switch is a little bit easier, especially for beginners, at least for me. But the ng switch, it works the same way, but you really don't want to have that logic in the template. So it's okay. And I actually use the ng switch in one of my public repos because it's reactive forms, and you're not going to put like hundreds of form fields on one page normally. You put maybe a dozen, maybe 2. And so in that situation, ng switch will be fine. But if you're going to have like a lot of, like a large collection or a lot of repetition or like a data grid or something big, a larger app, then the way that Fanis is doing it is much better, because in the long run, the the component factory resolver is actually faster, which is okay. It doesn't really matter if you're doing a small thing, but when you're getting into big things, it's good. They're talking in the chat about chunk names. Do you have any advice for how to name the chunks in a smart way?
Yeah, actually, there is from Webpack a way. I will try to share my screen.
Put it back up.
Can I do this?
Fanis said you can go. Fergus said you could go Ninja with Webpack and do it.
Actually, I'm trying to learn this. I don't remember exactly what is the semantic, but what we can do is here actually provide with comments, provide the name. Come on. So if I have here, for example, a different name, what Webpack will do is pick this name and create a chunk based on this. But to be honest with you, I don't know how this is going to be and how if it's going to be able to differentiate 2 different or 3 different, 4 different components. So this is actually how Webpack does it, but I'm not sure how it will work with dynamic components, with a dynamic path, sorry.
Awesome. Okay. Well, unless anybody else has any questions, I think that's it for tonight.
Yeah. Can I ask something else, Bonnie?
Oh, yeah. You did have one more question. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, this one is for a use case. Assume that, let's say that we have a what you see is what you get editor. And we want to give our users the capability to add dynamic buttons on the toolbar of the editor. So if I use a library, I want to put my own components in the toolbar. If Bonnie uses the library, he will want a different set of toolbar buttons. So a toolbar button will be a different component. So how could we approach with this way?
Yeah, good question. So I will try to expand a little bit this functionality, this feature. Let's say that we have this editor. What you see is what you get. So we have 2 different profiles. So if I have 2 different profiles, I need someone to have a state. So let's assume that the state is on the database. So I have an API with Bonnie. What kind of component do I need to have? What kind of toolbar do I need to have? ABC. For Aris, CDE, and so on and so forth. So having this, then it's very easy to utilize the components and load the components lazily from the editor. Just replacing tracking the path.
What's going to happen with the injectors? The lazy loaded component does have a different injector like the lazy loaded modules.
They do have something different with the injectors, and as far as I remember, I haven't tried this one. What you have to do every time that you have a lazy load component and this component lives in a module, immediately you have this as an injector. So if my module is module A, the injector will be module A. If my component lives in module B, my injector will be module B. But I haven't tried this a lot.
I think somewhere in there, I ran into like provided in root or something like that.
Sorry?
When you're, I could be crazy. Yeah, I haven't done it in a while, so I don't remember where you have to provide your services for lazy loaded components.
You know, Angular says that when the application bootstraps, the root injector closes, so you can't add additional services in the injector, and that's why lazy loaded modules.
This is what I was trying to remember. I was like, because there's always something that I trip over, right? And I think that what I tripped over was trying to lazy load the services and you really can't. And so when you lazy load the components, then you want to have that provided in for root, I think, or something. I don't remember the exact syntax, but it's provided in root because you can't really lazy load the services. But also, I was confused and I was struggling with it, but really the services are usually very small. So I haven't ever really found that services are taking up a lot of room in the bundle because they're small, right? So those need to be loaded up front.
Exactly. I agree with this.
Yep. Yeah. I was trying to remember something about providing in services because I messed it up the first time I used this. I always mess it up when I first do it, but yeah, this is really good stuff. Okay, Aris, do you have any more questions?
No, I'm finished. Thanks very much for answering, Fanis.
All right. Thank you.
Those were really good questions. Thank you very much, Fanis, for this was really good. And I definitely want to put you on Angular Air. It's a much bigger show and you can do this on Angular Air and more people can see it because I think this is a fabulous presentation. And I really like the way I have seen the component factory resolver before. But I still learned, I just really like the way that you set it up and the way that you lazy loaded it. It was beautiful. It was very nice. Thank you for visiting in Houston. And, okay, so that's it. And, we'll see y'all soon.
Thanks for having me. Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.